Welcome everybody to Rotary today. I'm so glad you are all here with us. Today we will do the Pledge of Allegiance in the four-way test. Ken is going to do a virtue reading, and Kate is going to do a blessing or prayer. We'll do club announcements. We've got Carrie doing fellowship. He did awesome last week. So yeah, you if you do too good of a job, then you're always going to be expected to do it. Yes, we have a dad joke, and then we are so excited to have Tim here as our guest speaker. So, all right, let's start out with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Is it the truth? Is it fair? All uncertain. Will it be with right, and Ken, I've got a microphone if you'd like to use it here. There you go.
So our virtue today is awe. Awe is a deep respect and reverence for the source of life. It is humility and wonder before the power of God. Contemplating life's beauty and mystery leads us to communion. Reflecting on our place in the universe, we seem small and insignificant. Yet it is awe-inspiring to realize that no one else on earth is just like us. Each of us has a unique potential for reflecting the divine virtues in our souls. We awaken them by choosing to live them. When we practice awe, we are alert to signs and wonders placed in our path. We open ourselves to grace. The highest point a man can attain is not knowledge or virtue or goodness or victory, but something even greater, more heroic and more despairing, sacred awe. The practice of awe. I am humble before the power of the Creator. I take time to contemplate and commune. I am aware of the sacredness of life. I cultivate the divine virtues in my nature. I discern the signs and synchronicities of life, and I deepen my connection to grace. I am thankful for the gift of awe. It fills me with wonder.
Thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind passing that to Kate.
Okay, go ahead. Father, thank you so much for this day, for the beautiful sunshine out there, for the way it's warming up and melting the ice. And I thank you for each and every one here today, for the ministry here in the community, for how we bond together as a unit and can do multiple things, Lord. I'm just so thankful for each and everyone's talents. I pray that you bless this food, give us a good meeting.
Thank you so much. And what about club announcements? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Club business. All right.
As we are really lucky, we're getting a lot of new members, and so when we get members, we like to there's 3 criteria they need to meet to get their name back. One of them is, being inducted, and then doing their classification speech, and then we like for them to just kind of serve as a greeter or as a attendant back in the back table for a month, so they get to know all their members. So I have a lot of slots open, so give me a call, shoot me an email, and I can plug you in. Thank you.
So our stride here is coming to a close in February, and we will be needing to evaluate essays that will result in scholarships being awarded. And so I'm looking for persons who'd be willing to read essays and evaluate them. It's an easy task, it's a fun task, and it only takes an hour and a half or so to do that. Also, in addition to that, I'd like you to put on your calendars the date of March 5th. We'll be holding our annual Thrive celebration banquet, and that'll be held here at the inn on Sunday, March the 5th. It'll be from 5 to 7, and it'll be a great opportunity for Rotarians to be present and celebrate the accomplishments of our students. And we have a lot of students this year, more than we've had in recent years, and we're hoping that it'll be just a great celebration. There'll be a lot of people here, and Rotary will have a great opportunity to show itself as a great organization. So please, put that on your calendar and think seriously about attending the event on the 5th of March. And if you'd like to be involved in reading essays and evaluating them, let me know about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Greg. Anyone else? No? Okay, then I'm gonna turn it over for fellowship to Carrie.
So we do have one birthday this week, Drake Miller, here, birthday. We have a few guests today. Brandon has brought his wife, Maureen, and Ibrahim. And would you like to say something?
So we're very pleased to have Ibrahim Khalif here. So,
Hi, Ibrahim.
and Ibrahim's very interested in youth in the Fairville community and reached out to me through our president Kurt, to talk about youth and how we can help make a difference inside the community. We had an opportunity to meet at my work, actually. We talked for a little while and I said, you know what, you need to come to Rotary meetings. Here it is.
Great.
Welcome, Ibrahim.
So, hi, Tony.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Ibrahim.
The fellowship. Yeah. So glad to have you here in Huntington. Any happy dollars up here?
I'm just happy to be anywhere after this morning's drive.
Anybody here at this table? Anything they want to share?
Been here a while, been online, so all the people online, we appreciate that support. I think there's a bunch that usually go online. The virtual awe today brought me, I mean, I know it's not as fun shoveling or driving, but some of the pictures I've been able to take and views with the snow and frost have been
Beautiful.
absolutely amazing. So there's good to the bad, but I focus on the good.
Thankful for my friend Greg and his leadership in our Strive program. That program has really taken off, and thankful for Kurt having that before and bridging a really tough time and with COVID. But it's good to see more youth in that program and excited to try.
Anything to share at this table? Tim, welcome. We can't wait to hear from you.
Thank you very much.
My first thought of awe, I actually stood up for 2 days skiing. I can't remember the last time, but 2 consecutive days without falling. So that was pretty darn cool. George and I attended the midterm last Saturday morning. I don't know if anybody here was on Zoom or not, but both I really encourage people to attend that. It's inspiring, it's full of knowledge. They put a lot of time into preparing those kinds of programs for us. And I would really encourage members to participate because it's important for our club. That's where this stuff comes from, is from attending those meetings and sitting. Most of you probably go to CE meetings or have, and you learn a lot when you're in the bar or something like that. Although it doesn't have a bar. But we do have coffee times, and you learn a lot just sitting next to folks and say, you know, we did this, it worked really good. And so we can bring that stuff back to help our club. I've been talking to Kelly Nygaard, and she got her connected now. She's a little folks and got her connected to Rotarian in Stillwater. And so she's anxious to get started there. And I think that's probably going to be a great Rotarian in Stillwater, those folks are very, very lucky. An idea that one of the clubs had, which I think is really cool, is that they do public image by using their number of people that they impact. And if you think about that, I'm thinking about Warren community. The people that you impacted were people that not only the kids that got clothing, but their families and their siblings and the teachers and all of you that work to get stuff together. Those numbers get to be huge. I'm thinking about Atlanta Patrick Prairie. You know, we're going to do that for 330 kids. But in addition to that, their families, if you have a family of 4, all those families are going to be impacted. And we're getting money from Tri-Lake Sports Club. That membership is going to be impacted. Soil and water is all. They're going to be impacted. Donovan's greenhouse. You know, all those people are going to be impacted by what Rotary did. And it'd be really cool if I could sit down with a new member during orientation and say, this past year, our club impacted 20,000 people. And that's not out of the realms of possibility. And those are the kinds of things that you can gather if you attend this. So I would really encourage people to, in the future, just to attend those things. Really, this is my iPad, folks. And so, well, that was the main one, I think. The other one, I'll send some information out, both on Camp Dialogue. This is an opportunity to provide leadership to each kids about leadership. And we've done it in the past, and those that have gone to Camp Dialogue have been positively impacted. And so I would urge our leadership to explore that probably at the board meeting next week, and I'll be gone, but I'll send some information around to some of the board members if they have some take on that. And so now I'm being your assistant governor post, done. But anyway, it was a great meeting. George and I went, and anytime you go to George, it's a great meeting. So we had a good time and it worked out well. So thanks for all the work that you do, and I'll give it back.
I did. We were probably already at the table and I'm sorry I missed it. Just woke up to, so last Thursday was my birthday and my day began in the most awesome way. Every Thursday morning, I meet with 3 other Christian men and we pray for each other and encourage one another. In the middle of that meeting, which was happening at my house, my wife came down the stairs with freshly baked cinnamon rolls and wished me a happy birthday, and in front of my friends, led prayer for me and offered the most beautiful prayer for me, and some petitions that were really important to my heart. She offered those aloud, and I just felt incredibly blessed. It was the beginning of the most wonderful day of celebration. So I wanted to share that with you today.
George, you have anything that you want to share?
Yeah, can you just give me half of this back? Yeah,
Welcome back, George.
yeah, thank you. Well, Dick and I went up, as you said earlier, to the district meeting, and Dick drove. And one of the nicest things I can say about Dick is that he's a good driver. And he's almost as good as I am. But that's the nicest thing I can say about you.
We're doing better than most.
But anyway, I'd like to say a couple things about the 4-way test. You know, we say it every day. It's like some of the prayers we have, one of the 10 more people we are grateful. We say these things by rote, and some of us take it more seriously than others. Now, Dick helps new members understand things about Rotary, including the 4-way test. So, but the older ones here, they probably not had an explanation of that for a long time. I'm going to run through a little bit of that. I'm going to stay sitting because my back doesn't like it when I stand up. The 4-way test was started by Herb Taylor, 1932. And he was made president of a aluminum company that was not doing very well. And he established the four-way test. And his rule was that we use that four-way test when we engage any other employee of that company. We don't use that four-way test when we talk with any customer of that company. We use that four-way test when we engage in any kind of activity with suppliers. Now, as I understand it, Herb Taylor became international president in the 1950s. And his administration, the four-way test was adopted by Rotary International. Now, what about the four-way test? Why should we pay attention to it? This is a carefully built, all these people in this room are good people. But none of us are perfect, and we never will be. We have to find some way in our lives to recognize that. That each one of us is the CEO of our own character. It's our responsibility, it's my responsibility. It's not my job to tell anybody here what they should be doing. It's not my job. That's your job. And if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. But there's so many ways that we can use to impact the fact of the four-way test. And that beyond that is when we're out in the public, each and every one of us should be wearing a Rotary pin, Paul Harris pin. Why not? You know, I wear mine on this lapel. Why? Because when you shake hands with people, people see what's going on. Okay? So with that, you might be able to start a conversation about the four-way test. We can be the power of one, somebody, if we know how to do it. And if anybody wants to have lunch with me, I will buy the lunch. I'll tell you some things that I think work. It's up to you to decide if you want to do it. I mean that. I'll give you my number right now. 507-323-5239. Give me a call, leave a message. I'll get back to you.
Stop wrecking my stuff.
That we're promulgating all over this country regarding climate change, environment, the economy, all these things, in politics. Politics is a big part of that, run down the competition and stuff like that. All that stuff. I said too much, but let's think about voting the four-way test. Here you go.
Thank you so much, George.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, George. Carrie, here's my fellowship money. And you heard it here first, called George's four-way hotline, four-way test hotline. And have a deeper discussion on the four-way test and get a free lunch. That's very generous of you, George. And thank you for your passion on that. Dr. Houston mentioned Kelly Nygaard, and thinking of Kelly reminded me of something I thought in my head is sometimes you meet people and you think that person is an S-bar, should be a Rotarian, right? Kelly is a great example of somebody that lives the values of Rotary, but isn't officially a club member. And someone else that I know is Ibram, that I think fits that mold too. I've known Ibram for several years. We volunteered together at the Faribault Diversity Coalition and helping EL students with reading and different touring at the high school. And such a wonderful person. I am so glad you're here with us today. And we welcome you back time and time again. We'd love to have you join our club too, but no pressure at all. So I got a few dollars in the fellowship cup. One is for Natalie and I celebrating her birthday. She's joining us from Zoom today. We had a really nice time together. We tried to bake marble cakes for the first time, and it looks so easy online, getting marbling down in there. I thought you could just go to the store and buy a cake mix for a marble cake, but you actually have to buy two mixes, chocolate and the yellow mix of it. It's great. Thankfully, she was there to help guide me through that process. Saturday, we got Natalie's son Pete moved into his dorm room over in Bethany, so he's all excited to live the dorm life. I'm sure he'll be coming home often, though, to see his girlfriend Kate and have help with laundry and things like that. But very excited about that. And then also a little bit of money to recognize again Jim Crowell, who we had talked about last week. Had an absolutely wonderful and very meaningful service for Jim on Saturday at First English. And just one of the things that really struck me was how many people, in visiting talked about how kind Jim was, and again, how he took the time to get to know him. And I think, I'll take a lesson from Jim's playbook of being interested in everyone's story. I thought that was really, really neat. So, all right, so, we do a dad joke every week. It's kind of my shtick. They're usually not that great, so hold your expectations low. All right. Here's my animation. Where's your dad joke time? So, I saw a half-price vampire costume at the Halloween store. There you have a Halloween store that clearly used to be a Toys R Us. Now it's got the temporary banner up there. That's like a discount store. It was a discount Dracula. Yeah, no, okay, but why would I use a Dracula joke in January? And it's because of our guest speaker, who I found out has not only done tireless work to promote ending polio, but has also spoken as Dracula, presented as a leprechaun, and other fun things as well. So today we are delighted to have you join us for Rotary. So let's hear a round of applause for our guest speaker. And Dr. We'd like to talk and do an introduction. There you go, sir.
Tim and I met at the annual foundation celebration this past fall with her, and have common likeness in trying to rid this world of polio. And so that's how the discussion started. Tim is the last remaining charter member of the Chad Hansen Rotary Foundation in 1987. He served 3 times as president and has been on many 12 industry committees. Since 2012, he has been District 5950 polio chair. Tim always has the latest information on Rotary's flagship initiative for worldwide eradication of polio. He retired from a career in law enforcement and has a passion for singing songs from the Great American Songbook. Is that part of your program? No. He resides with his wife Ginger and Savage, where they have been building a home on Credit River. Please welcome Jim.
You appreciate that so much. And thank you, Kurt.
My pleasure. Whenever you're ready, you can just click the link to the video.
Click the link to that's on me, okay. Well, I want you all to relax. I'm not here to put the touch on you. Been doing this for 10 years. And when I told my wife Ginger that I was coming down to Shattuck today, she said, "You're kidding." She says, "I wasn't sure." She was a cheerleader for Northrop, an all-girls school back in the 60s. And they did the cheerleading for Blake, the all-boys school. And we used to come down here and she used to do the cheerleading for whatever the boys were doing at the time, football, basketball. So that was fun. What a wonderful club that you do have. What a history. It was a pleasure to learn some of your history from Dick. And then to have a few minutes with George. I thought I was coming down here, I thought that the main thing that God wanted me to be here was to deliver a polio speech, but I think it was to sit down with George for a few minutes and learn a little bit about 93 years of wisdom. So thank you for that. I might have to come down and take you up on that lunch. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So I'm not here to put the touch on it, even though I've been doing this polio thing for 3 years. That's the decision that's going to be made by your club board. My goal here is to inform you of the progress of Rotary and the #1 effort that we're doing worldwide. This is our flagship initiative, you know. And when it's something better than just getting a brochure in the mail, or like the brochures that you have sitting around there on your tables. I hope also to inspire you and to entertain you. We all like to have a good speaker at our meetings, and I hope not to disappoint you. Let me play this video for you. Is the sound up on this thing? I want to make sure that we have plenty of sound. Okay. Yeah, I probably just.
Don't worries at all.
Who should I put it? Oh, yeah, that's what we're looking for.
We are this close.
Yeah.
Well, this close, it's in the world. We are this close to making sure no child suffers a cruel disease.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
Because we are this close to ending polio.
We are this close to ending polio.
We are this close.
To changing the world.
These things
I mean, we need you.
It's you.
Is you.
we are this close. This close. Be a part of history at rotary.org/endingpolio.
Thank you, Kurt, appreciate that. So a few years ago, there was a piece in Time Magazine about our progress. And it said the rear guard of the polio virus is being outdone on nearly every front by Rotary International. By Rotary International, Time Magazine. Well, who else was in Time Magazine? Well, there was President Obama, there was Norman Schwarzkopf, there was heads of state, rock and roll legends, movie stars, sports heroes, and Rotary. And I had a friend that said, man, we gotta get the word out. I'm like, man, you're in Time Magazine right now. You're there, baby. I see it in popular news media all over. And so congratulations to you. Bill Gates regularly speaks about our successful efforts to eradicate polio in the world. He gave about $1.7 billion towards it and just double his commitment towards that. That's all the money we've ever put into it. If we put $1.5 billion into it since the very beginning, Bill Gates comes along a dozen years ago, and since then he's matched all that money and then just doubled that. And he inspired guys like Michael Bloomberg gave $100 million towards this effort. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative is something that was created by you, or at least at the minimum, you are the catalyst that helped this effort to get this far. Now, a brief history about polio, in case there are new members who just don't know anything about the history. Polio is a virus that affects the central nervous system, and it's very virulent. And it was very, very scary in the 40s and 50s when they did not have a vaccine for polio in the early 50s and in the 40s. Two doctors developed two very different but effective vaccines to prevent polio. So then the world had from like 1955 to 1985 with two cheap and effective vaccines to eradicate polio. 1985, you think it would be done, 30 years. The world had to deal with this. There were 387,000 cases of polio in 125 countries, and the World Health Organization said, yeah, it's probably going to be that way. That's going to be normal. And it was you, your organization, Rotary International, that said, that is simply a geopolitical problem to resolve. Can you imagine that? We had the fortitude to say that to the World Health Organization. That is simply a geopolitical problem for us to resolve. So the thing is with that kind of so now what happened now? So 30 years later, now what are we down to? We're like 30 cases in two or three countries last year. Only two of which are considered endemic, Pakistan and Afghanistan, right? We're down from what it was 125 countries, we're down to two that are still considered endemic. And little portions of Pakistan and Afghanistan where polio has not been effectively stopped. And last year we had like 30 plus cases. We had some pop-ups around in a couple different places in the world, but primarily Pakistan and Afghanistan is where we're at. Did you know this, that we had trouble like advancing the polio initiative in Afghanistan, and then what happened in Afghanistan, say it? Taliban took over, right? What's happened? Oh my gosh, the Taliban, they were a great obstacle to us in getting the polio eradication done, to get polio vaccines out. Taliban, as of November 8th last year, they started doing immunizations. And we were able to reach 3 million new children that we had previously been unable to reach in Afghanistan. That's hot off the press, folks. That's new stuff. Right? So we continue to make progress. When I first took this job 10 years ago, the acronym was Let's Stop the Pain, PAIN. Pakistan, Afghanistan, India, Nigeria. India went polio free in 2013. Nigeria 2 years ago. Can't even use that tagline anymore in 10 years. That's the progress. And it's wholly the responsibility of you that it happened. We are the grease that gets this thing done. Why are we so concerned about polio in the Middle East? Well, I'm gonna tell you a little story to illustrate the point. A mouse looked through the crack in the farmhouse wall. Okay? Retrieving to the farmyard, the mouse announced, "There's a mouse trap in the house, there's a mouse trap in the house." And the chicken with his head down and a hunt peck for grain said, "Well, that's just very interesting, Mr. Mouse. I can tell it's of great concern to you, but I'm really very busy hunting and pecking for grain." And the pig sympathized and said, "I am so sorry, Mr. Mouse, I assure you that you are in my prayers." And the cow said, Mr. Mouse, I'm sorry for you, but that really doesn't affect me." And so the mouse returned to the house, head down, dejected to face the mouse trap alone. That very night, the sound of a mouse trap catching its prey could be heard through the farmhouse. The farmer's wife goes to investigate, but in the darkness, she does not see that it's the tail of a poisonous snake that's been caught in the mouse trap, and he bites her. The farmer takes his wife to the doc. Doc says, you need to take her home and treat her for a fever. Well, everybody knows, George probably knows how do you treat a fever? Some good old chicken noodle soup. So the farmer goes out to the farmyard to retrieve the soup's main ingredient. Hot chicken. You can laugh now. Right on cue. But his wife's sickness continued, so friends and family came to sit around with her around the clock to feed them. The farmer butchered the pig. The farmer's wife did not get well. She passed away. So many people came to the funeral. The farmer had the cow slaughtered to provide enough meat to feed them all. So the next time you hear of a crisis facing, whether it's here in the neighborhood or whether it's somewhere else in the world, remember, when one of us is threatened, we're all at risk. This is the case with polio. This is how polio is. When one of us in the world is threatened, we are all at risk. It's estimated if we do not see this fight through the end, polio will come back big. 10 million new cases in the next 40 years if we just try to just kind of keep a lid on it. So to speak. It's just a plane right away. It's in the news. They found samples in New York, in the sewage system in New York, found it in London, right? It's just an illustration. And if you don't think it could happen here, consider that the Centers for Disease Control says that 30% of our own children are not properly, fully vaccinated. We've had cases of measles. We've had cases of pertussis in the United States, right here. These are diseases for which proper immunization is protocol for a child. It never happened. Syria hadn't had a case of polio in 14 years. And they had a little war, took the eye off the ball. 22 children under 2 were affected with polio. This simply serves to illustrate the danger of not keeping our focus. Can you answer this one? You're a Rotarian. I expect that somebody on the street could maybe catch you in this one. Don't vaccinations actually cause polio? Can you answer it? Is it the truth? It is the truth. But it can only happen when all the wrong stars line up. Only happens with the oral polio vaccine. Only happens when they don't get proper coverage in an area of the immunization. And it's so rare. It's like 600 cases per 2.5 billion. So only with the oral polio vaccine and very, very rare. But the fact of the matter is, it's true. It could happen. It does happen occasionally. Now they've gotten, as of last year, they have a novel oral polio vaccine, which is less likely to mutate into a virulent form. That's brand new. If you think I'm telling the same story for the last 30 years, I'm not. Hope you're keeping track. This is new stuff. The injectable vaccine is a dead virus vaccine. So there's no chance of it morphing into anything, but it only protects the individual receiving it and doesn't have the same herd immunity that we have with the oral polio vaccine. That's why we continue with the oral polio vaccine in areas where polio, wild polio, has not been effectively stopped. Once it's stopped, then countries, country by country transitions from the oral polio vaccine to the injectable vaccine. You know, I contribute, but polio contributions don't actually go towards Paul Harris Fellowship, do they? Yes, they do. They do. Polio fundraising under the Polio Plus, under the Rotary Foundation, is a fund within the Rotary Foundation and does qualify for Paul Harris Fellowship. And the ask is different between the two. We all know, we should all know, that there's two asks of the club. One is to give to Polio Plus as a club from whatever fundraising the club does, at the rate of about $1,500 a year, from whatever fundraising the club does. The other is the individual ask for annual programs. That's every Rotarian every year give to the annual programs, and that is the source of our grant money, right? Half of that money comes back to our district 3 years later and is the source of our grants for projects. It's like a donor advised fund, I tell people. I've heard that polio vaccine is derived from the propagated cells of aborted fetuses, and my religion prohibits my involvement in it. That isn't true either, not with the polio vaccine. So as you can see, as we get near the end, these questions that we get become harder and harder. We're up against some incredibly tough adversaries. The last bastion of the polio virus is hiding in some of the crevices of some very dismal and impoverished places in the world, but we're getting there. But it requires the commitment of an Olympian. We're up against some tough adversaries. You know what they are? Fatigue. You try and keep your energy up over 35 years. It's tough. Vying against what I call other noble but competing interests of Rotary. We do so much. We do so much. But our #1 flagship thing is polio eradication. Apathy. Apathy on the part of those who do not remember how frightening polio is. We also have some new and previously unimaginable folks, new ones. Myth, you're here to sterilize our children. No, we're not doing that. We eradicated polio in India, they're still having children. Anti-vaccination movements. We couldn't have foreseen that 40 years ago, couldn't have foreseen that. And, you know, the Taliban inhibited our efforts for quite a long time until they got on board last year. The struggle to end polio reminds me of my personal climb on Kilimanjaro. Remember how that goes, Dick? Pole, right? After 3 days of climbing, I was doing pretty well at Kibo Hut, 15,000 feet. We slept briefly, and then at midnight, we began our 6.5-hour ascent to Gilman's Point, and another 2.5 hours to Uhuru Peak at 19,340 feet. About 4 hours into the ascent, I was facing fatigue. Altitude sickness was not my enemy, as I witnessed others being carried down, sometimes in wheelbarrows. Others were sick alongside the trail. I needed a head game. What could I do? I began counting my steps. At 50 steps, I thought I was going to either pass out or lose control. I stopped and began deep breathing. Going out as much of that air as I could, taking in as much air as I could, trying to get that oxygen into my body. After 25 of those, or after after the 50 steps, I started 25 of those deep breaths. And then I began counting steps again. 50 steps, 25 deep breaths. These became my smaller benchmarks to meet for the next 4.5 hours to get to Uhuru Peak, and then the entire route back to Kibo Hut. Any polio in the world is within sight, as Uhuru Peak was to me. It's within sight. Polio eradication is our calling. If you're a Rotarian, it's your calling. And more importantly, it's our commitment. What does commitment mean? For Rotarian, commitment means everything. It's your integrity in the line. If you say you're gonna do something, you get it done. What will be our own personal benchmarks as we continue this fight until the very end? I'll take you back to 1946. I always struggle with this story. In the spring of that year, a 13-year-old boy and his 11-year-old sister were walking a mile and a half from school back to their farm. Foley, Minnesota. It was a beautiful day. They were close in age and they did all their chores together. And she looked up at her older brother, who had been her closest friend all of her life. And he began talking excitedly about the tractor that was on the order, a 1946 Farmall. Woo! A 1946 Farmall, George. It was 1 year after the war. You know, all steel resources were going towards the war effort in the previous years. So getting a tractor made out of steel was a very lofty dream. Steel was in such demand during the war that bayonets for M1 rifles were being cut down from 16 inches down to 10 inches to use the steel for something else. But now, a year after the war ended, things like tractors might be available. 1946. He couldn't stop talking about that tractor. He couldn't stop talking about the possibility of getting that tractor. But as he did, a horrible foreboding feeling came over that 11-year-old girl. Shut up, she said. I don't want to hear about that tractor. I hope we never get it. Her brother got very angry with her and he ran ahead to the farm. She walked home alone and sobbing. Brother didn't speak about the tractor to her again. At the farm, John and Ida Carlin were busy with crops in the field, and they had some crops in the house too. Now, as common with the days before penicillin, Marcel had died at age 2 of scarlet fever, and Johnny died at age 14 of rheumatic fever, after having been in bed for an entire year. Of the 11 children, 3 were off to war as part of mandatory service in those days, and 6 were still at home. Summer came, and with it, a polio epidemic. Summer 1946. Except for church, people were avoiding getting together at all. It was a very frightening time. No theater, no swimming pools, none of that. There was no state fair in Minnesota in 1946 because of the polio epidemic. Then one Wednesday in August of 1946, the 13-year-old boy started feeling a little lousy. Everyone in the family had come through sort of a summer crud. So John and Ida didn't take him to the doctor, but on Thursday he was worse. But the tractor was supposed to arrive, so he sure wasn't going to leave then. The boy said he was feeling fine. He wasn't. So there's no way he's going to leave the farm. The tractor came, the boy dragged himself out to it. He sat on it, draping himself over the steering wheel for a very long time. His sister climbed up next to him. The boy was too weak to start it. He said he'd teach her how to drive it tomorrow. The next day, the boy was very ill. John and I took him to Doc Donaldson in Foley. He diagnosed it as polio. He said there's nothing that he could do, nothing the St. Cloud Hospital could do, but maybe the University of Minnesota. So he went there by ambulance. His little sister was so scared. She and her brother had built a very crude fort in the oak tree right across the driveway from the farmhouse. And she climbed up there. It was very heavy with foliage in August. She started to pray. She never prayed that hard for anything in her life. Back then, they prayed for everything back in those days. They prayed every meal. They prayed in the evenings. They prayed for the crops. They prayed for her brothers at war. Constant prayer. She never prayed harder than she did that day. Later that day, John and I came home with the ambulance, but without her brother, to attend to the afternoon chores. And the next morning, the news arrived that her brother had died. She was devastated. Her brother's wake was in the living room of the farmhouse. Nobody would come in. They would drive through the driveway, wave, tears of condolence. Trying to give you a sense of what polio was. If you had polio in an area, people of means would send their children to another place. in order to avoid this virus that they knew very little about. Well, I'm here to tell you that the young girl, her name is Ann, she's my mom. 13-year-old boy. His name is Tim. He was my I'm my mom's firstborn of 6 children. And she named me in memory of him. Mom's still alive, she's 88. I asked her to tell me the story of Tim many years ago, and she did, and it made her cry. Think about how many years ago it was. She's the most emotionally strong and resilient person that I know. But her pain is as raw now as it was then. Now, I did not join Rotary for its polio eradication efforts. So what a strange twist of fate that I find myself before you and many others over the last 10 years telling about the success of our polio eradication efforts. And gosh, wouldn't you just do anything to prevent that unnecessary pain and suffering? It's completely preventable disease. You know, the way it works is that 1 in 200 be affected. Sometimes I pass a little virus ball around the room. It says, you know, you all got the virus today. You all got it. One of you is gonna die. Could you identify that person for me? And would you do anything to save that person? We're so close to eradicating this disease. It's one of the greatest victories humanity will ever celebrate or has ever celebrated. It's $1 billion a year effort. We have legions of workers, legions of willing workers around the world that are helping us. What a team. What a team you built. UNICEF, Centers for Disease Control, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the World Health Organization. Yep, they came along. And by the way, every government of every country in the world. This is just one area of Rotary in which you and Rotary's Foundation might make a difference in the world. You might make a difference in the world. I can't do that on a street cop. This is my life. That's what that would be on earth, to be a street cop. Rotary opened up the world to me and let me feel that I can make a difference in this world. It's really some powerful stuff. You can make a difference. Remember the story of the starfish? You can make a difference to that one. The starfish are just piled up on shore. The tide has receded, and you start throwing them back, one at a time. Somebody comes along and says, "What are you doing? There's like 1 billion of them here. They're gonna die." Not that one. Throw another one off. That's how it was. That's how it was when my wife and I did a National Immunization Day in India in 2012. When we delivered that vaccine, 2 drops on the tongue of a child, and you know that one is protected. Wow. It's been said that Rotary could win the Nobel Peace Prize for polio eradication efforts. I don't know about you, but that's as close as I'm ever getting to a Nobel Peace Prize. You think? Would you like to be a part of that? More importantly, if that happens, you want to make sure that you can fully feel and say, "I am a part of that. I did what I could." The Rotary Foundation is at the heart of all that we do, including polio eradication. The Rotary Foundation has been a remarkable steward of our money. Check it out. Charity Navigator, whatever kind of rating system you want to look at, you can't beat the Rotary Foundation for your giving and the leverage that you get for your giving. I hope you'll consider it. You don't have to do this alone. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. Put it on your Facebook and LinkedIn. Post a polio eradication fundraiser. You're getting the non-military public involved, letting them know where Rotary is. Another consideration is that once polio is eliminated, we could have $1 billion a year to do something else. How would that be? What would it be? And you know what? We need to finish it. You know, there's a lot of vying for the next thing. What's the next thing going to be? There's a lot of vying for it. A lot of stuff. Everybody wants to be the next thing. Well, the next thing don't mean diddly until you finish this. You won't get partners until you finish this. You have to fulfill your promise here. This has to be finished so that you have the energy and excitement. You can say, who wants to join us on the next thing? Look what we did with polio. That's how this thing works. Well, our busy and blessed lives, we can get going pretty good down this, down the lane of traffic. Kind of oblivious to what's going on either side of us, concentrated on what's just ahead. But what if a brick is suddenly thrown from between the cars, smashes into your car? Oh, put on the brakes and get out and go find whoever threw that brick. What if you find that it's a boy next to another boy on the ground in a wheelchair? And he says, I'm so sorry, mister. My brother needed help and I couldn't get anyone to stop. What if that's the brick was thrown? My fellow Rotarians, this is my brick. This is it. This is our legacy in the making. When our tarnished rotary pins are found by our great-great-grandchildren, what will they be told that that symbol represents? The four-way test? That'd be nice. Eradication of polio? That'd be great. Want to make it synonymous with an ending to this dreaded disease called polio. They crippled and killed millions of our children. And our children's children will say, wow, or whatever word it means, wow, when that day comes. I want to thank you for allowing me to share this wonderful time, wonderful meal with you guys. Thank you for the invitation to come down to Faribault. Wish you well in your personal foundation, giving decision, and Godspeed our goal of a polio-free world. Thank you. Turn back to the president, and then if we have time for questions, Kurt, do we have time?
Yeah.
All right, I want to be respectful of your time.
A couple of things.
Yes, sir.
I remember the scare about polio when I was young. We didn't know about swimming or anything else. There was a man, George Knight. The only way they could save his life was to put him into an iron lung so that would breathe for him. He lived the rest of his life in an iron lung. We didn't know about swimming or anything else. But it was in the 1950s someplace, Jonas Salk came out with some kind of vaccine. It was polio. I don't know a whole lot more about that, except that was a big deal back then. Now, if you don't give me a date, if we're going to have this over with, I'll buy you lunch from that date. What date should I put down?
5 years from now.
5
But I might be at the last location they ever had the polio virus. That might be where I'm at. But 5 years from now, it should be the end of all this. And as he was saying, the fear was great. People didn't get together for anything. And then the Salk vaccine was just people stood in line to get that vaccine to protect their children. Are there any other questions? Excuse me, David.
Tim, I don't have a question, but you know, in 2019, I did a National Immunization Day in Pakistan. And you cannot believe how hard these people in Pakistan are working and in the conditions that they're working in to get their children vaccinated. It is absolutely amazing. I went to 5 vaccination sites that were some of the poorest of the poor that I've seen, and I've seen some poor people around the world, stuff that I've done, and but they're so passionate about protecting their children.
It's true. We have legions of willing workers around the world. A lot of them are paid local healthcare workers, and that's a great part of it. I have one more quick story to tell you. I was president of my club 3 times since 1987. Second time around, I was disposed towards the question of what do you do with anti-vaxxers. I want to share the story with you. Second time around, I'm doing due diligence, November, Foundation Giving Month, and this fairly new member says, no, I don't think we should give into that polio stuff. I'm like, what? You know, I came out of law enforcement, so I'm not afraid to step into a fight. That's a fact. And so I stepped right into it. She didn't just tell me, she did an email blast to the entire club. And so I stepped into the fray, and that's where I really climbed the learning curve on polio. I bought a very public with her. In the end, do you think I convinced her? And I did not. And she left the club. Ooh. Like, oh my gosh, now I've lost a member. I lost her new account. I didn't win the argument. I didn't win her over, and she left Rotary. Gotta figure out how to do this better. This is before I became polio chair. Here's the piece of ammunition I want to give you. Now, when you encounter anti-vaxxers, this required a lot of thinking on my part, but this is a piece that I think will work for you. And that is that, listen, how can a Rotarian that is vaccine hesitant, at least, how can they feel fully a Rotarian when they can't embody, they can't support the #1 flagship effort of Rotary in the world? I'm telling you. This is how it goes. We are very, very heavily invested in fresh water, are we not? Safe water, everybody knows it, right? Major initiatives in fresh water, safe water around the world. Polio is transmitted primarily through unclean water. So when I get into a debate with an anti-vaxxer and say, like, look, we can debate this all day long, we probably won't end up agreeing, but if you understand that you can give to the Rotary Foundation, earmark your money for safe water, your money won't be going to vaccinations, but because polio is primarily spread through unclean water, we'll be fighting the fight together and not against each other. And you can feel every bit as much a Rotarian as I. Does that work? Thank you all.
Thank you so very much for sharing your time and your message with us today. I think I will remember your presentation for years and years and years to come. Brent is our foundation chair, had to head back to work, but if you are inspired and not yet giving to the foundation or Polio Plus through the foundation, Brent can help you get set up with that. You can do deduction from your checking account every month or every week or whatever works for you at a level that's affordable for you, if that is something that you are passionate about. Yes. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. All right, so with that being said, go out and be kind, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, they do. Yeah. I get the road problem, my wife wants to.